There is a letter that the Social Security Administration is mailing to hundreds of thousands of seniors right now, and the day it lands in your mailbox, it can cut your monthly check in half. Not because you did anything wrong, but because of a mistake the agency itself made years ago and is only catching now. If you are collecting Social Security, retirement, survivors, or disability, listen to this very carefully. The notice is called an overpayment notice, and it says that at some point in the past the government paid you more than it should have, and now it wants the money back. Sometimes a few $1,000s, sometimes $10,000, $20,000, occasionally far more. And here is the part that costs people the most. Starting in 2025, the agency went back to taking up to half of your monthly benefit to collect that debt automatically until it is paid off. Most people open that letter, panic, and either ignore it or start repaying immediately. And both of those are the wrong move. There are 3 deadlines hidden in that notice, and the single biggest mistake people make is letting the clock run out on all 3 before they do the one thing that can stop the withholding entirely. Most seniors never even know those options exist because the letter does not put them front and center. Today, Mark is going to walk you through exactly what this notice is, how the agency takes the money, the 4 mistakes that cost families thousands, and the 3 steps that determine whether you pay back a debt you may not even owe or keep your full check. Stay through to step 3. It is the step almost nobody takes, and it is the difference between protecting your benefit and watching half of it disappear. Before we get into it, if you are watching this and you are not subscribed, do that right now and turn on the bell. The rules around Social Security overpayments are some of the most misunderstood and most stressful in the entire system, and the agency is not in the business of explaining your rights to you before the clock runs out. That is exactly what this channel is built to do. Let us start with what this notice actually is. An overpayment happens when the Social Security Administration decides it paid you more than you were entitled to over some stretch of time. And the most important thing to understand is that most overpayments are not the senior's fault. They happen because the agency was slow to process a change, or made an error in its own records, or did not update your file when something in your life changed, a return to part-time work, a change in a spouse's benefit, a disability review that got delayed for years. The money was deposited into your account month after month. You spent it on rent and groceries and medicine like any normal person would. And then one day, sometimes years later, the agency runs its numbers, decides it overpaid you, and sends a letter demanding it all back. For a lot of seniors, the first reaction is shock because they have no memory of doing anything wrong, and in most cases, they did not. Now here is how the agency actually takes the money, and this is the part that changed. For a long time, if you did nothing about an overpayment notice, the agency would withhold a portion of your monthly check to recover the debt. In early 2024, the agency capped that at 10% of your monthly benefit, so the recovery was slow and gentle. But in 2025, that changed. In March of 2025, the agency moved to take 100% of monthly checks to recover overpayments, meaning your entire benefit could be withheld until the debt was cleared. After a wave of public criticism, the agency pulled back, and in late April of 2025, it set the default at 50%. So today, if you receive an overpayment notice and you do nothing, the agency can begin withholding half of your monthly Social Security check until the overpayment is paid off. For a senior living on a fixed income, losing half a check is not an inconvenience. It is the difference between paying the rent and not paying it. And the agency does not need your permission to do it. If you let the deadlines pass, the withholding simply begins. Now here is where families lose thousands without realizing it, because none of the protections are automatic. The notice does not arrive with a friendly explanation of your rights printed in large letters at the top. It tells you that you were overpaid, how much it claims you owe, and that it intends to recover the money. What it does not shout at you is that you have the right to challenge whether you were overpaid at all, the right to ask the government to forgive the debt entirely, and the right to slow the repayment down to an amount you can actually live with. Those rights exist for every single person who gets one of these letters, but they only protect you if you act on them, and there are deadlines. If you sit on the notice, out of fear or confusion, or the very human hope that it will just go away, the deadlines pass, the withholding starts, and you have given up options that could have erased the debt or stopped the collection cold. The families who keep their checks are the ones who understood the deadlines and acted inside them. The families who lose half a check for a year are the ones who put the letter in a drawer. Now here is the history that explains why so many people get this wrong. For years, the advice that got passed around was that an overpayment notice was final. that the government had decided and there was nothing you could do but pay it back. That was never true. Built into the system, for decades, have been two powerful tools: the right to appeal, where you argue you were not actually overpaid or the amount is wrong, and the right to a waiver, where you ask the agency to forgive the debt because the overpayment was not your fault and you cannot afford to repay it. The other thing people got wrong is assuming that because the money was deposited into their account, they must legally owe it back no matter what. But the law has always recognized that it is unfair to claw back money from someone who received it in good faith, spent it on ordinary living expenses, and had no reason to know it was too much. That is exactly the situation a waiver is designed for. The problem is that almost nobody knows the waiver exists until a knowledgeable person tells them. And by then, for many, half a check has already been withheld for months. Now here are the 4 mistakes that cost families thousands. Listen carefully for yours. Mistake 1. Ignoring the letter or assuming it will go away. This is the most common and the most expensive mistake of all. The overpayment notice is not junk mail, and it does not expire on its own. If you do nothing, the agency simply starts withholding up to half your monthly check on its own schedule. Every month you wait is a month closer to losing options that could have wiped the debt out. Doing nothing does not make the debt disappear. It makes the collection automatic. Mistake 2. Panicking and immediately repaying in full. A senior gets the letter, sees a number like $15,000, and either drains a savings account to pay it or agrees on the phone to a repayment plan they cannot afford, just to make the stress go away. This is a mistake because you may not even owe the money. The agency makes calculation errors, and a large share of overpayment notices are wrong or overstated. Paying immediately, before anyone reviews whether the debt is even correct, can hand the government thousands of dollars you were never required to repay. The instinct to deal with it fast is right. Emptying your account before challenging the number is what costs people. Mistake 3. Missing the appeal window. If you believe you were not actually overpaid or that the amount the agency claims is wrong, you have the right to file an appeal, formally called a request for reconsideration, on a form known as the SSA 561. But there is a clock. You generally have 60 days from the date on the notice to file that appeal. And here is the part that matters most. If you file within the first 30 days, the agency is supposed to pause all collection until it makes a decision, which means no money is withheld from your check while your case is reviewed. Miss that early window, and the withholding can begin before your appeal is even decided. The deadline is not a suggestion. It is the gate between keeping your full check during the review and losing half of it while you wait. Mistake 4. Never asking for a waiver or never asking to lower the repayment rate. This is the one almost nobody knows about. Even if the overpayment is real, you can ask the agency to forgive it entirely with a waiver on the form known as the SSA 632. If the overpayment was not your fault and repaying it would leave you unable to cover your basic living expenses, there is no time limit to request a waiver. You can ask at any time. And separately, if you cannot pay back half your check but you are willing to repay something, you can ask the agency to lower the withholding to an amount you can actually live with, in many cases down to a small fraction of your benefit, sometimes just a few dollars a month. Most seniors never ask because the letter does not put these options in front of them, and so they quietly absorb a 50% cut they never had to accept. Not asking is leaving real money and real relief on the table. If you recognize your situation in any one of those 4, your check is exposed and the time to act is now, not after the withholding has already started. Here are the 3 steps. Step 1. Do not ignore the letter and do not pay anything yet. Read it and write down the dates. Find the date printed on the notice, because that is the date all the deadlines run from. Read what it says you owe and for what period. Then mark 2 dates on your calendar. 30 days from the notice date, which is the window to stop collection while you challenge it, and 60 days, which is the deadline to file your appeal. The single most common reason seniors lose this fight is that they never even identified the deadlines until they had already passed. You cannot protect a deadline you never wrote down. Step 2. Decide which path fits your situation and file the right form inside the deadline. There are 3 doors and you can use more than one. If you think the agency is wrong, that you were not overpaid, or the amount is too high, file an appeal, the request for reconsideration, the SSA 561, within 60 days, and ideally within the first 30 so collection is paused while it is reviewed. If you agree the debt is real but it was not your fault and you cannot afford to repay it, file for a waiver, the SSA 632, which has no deadline and can forgive the debt entirely. And if you simply cannot survive on half a check, ask the agency to lower your repayment rate to an amount you can live with. You can request these by phone, online, or at your local office. But get the request in writing and on the record, and keep a copy of everything you send. Step 3 is the step almost nobody takes, and it is the one that separates the families who keep their checks from the families who lose half of them. Act inside the first 30 days before any money is withheld. Do not wait to see what happens. The single most powerful thing about every one of these rights is timing. A waiver or appeal filed in the first 30 days can keep your full check coming while your case is decided. The exact same request filed 3 months later, after half your benefit has already been taken month after month, comes too late to give you back what was already withheld. The seniors who come out of this hole are almost always the ones who acted the very first week the letter arrived, while the clock still had room to run. Do not wait for the withholding to start to take it seriously. Once it starts, the easy protection is already behind you. Call the agency and say, in these words, I am requesting a waiver and asking that collection be stopped while my request is reviewed. What is the date this needs to be filed by? That date is your clock. And before I bring this all together for you, the one thing that ties these 3 steps into a single plan you can act on today, do me one favor. If this has already shown you something you did not know, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell right now. It costs you nothing, and it is the only way the next change to these rules reaches you before it quietly hits your check. Let me bring this together. The Social Security Administration is sending overpayment notices to hundreds of thousands of people, and starting in 2025, if you do nothing, it can withhold up to half of your monthly check to collect a debt that is often not your fault and is sometimes not even correct. But you are not powerless. You have the right to appeal if you think the amount is wrong, using the SSA 561 within 60 days. You have the right to a waiver using the SSA 632 with no deadline if the overpayment was not your fault and repaying it would leave you unable to cover basic living expenses, and you have the right to lower the repayment rate to something you can actually afford. The agency will not put these front and center. The only way you keep your full check is by taking the 3 steps Mark just walked you through. Step 1. Do not ignore the letter and do not pay yet. Find the date on the notice and mark the 30-day and 60-day deadlines on your calendar. Step 2. Pick your door and file the right form inside the deadline. The SSA 561 to appeal, the SSA 632 to ask for a waiver or a request to lower the repayment rate, and keep a copy of everything. Step 3. Act inside the first 30 days while it can still pause the withholding and ask the exact words. I am requesting a waiver and asking that collection be stopped while my request is reviewed. What is the date this needs to be filed by? Take one of those steps today. And then send this video to one person you know who is on Social Security, retired, or on disability. There is a very good chance that if a notice like this ever lands in their mailbox, they will have no idea they can fight it, slow it down, or have it forgiven, and that not knowing could cost them half a check for a year. That one share might keep a senior's check whole instead of cut in half. That is what this channel is here for. Subscribe and turn on the bell. Mark will see you in the next one.